Hello, welcome back to Scuttlebutt, a Marine Corps Association podcast. I am Nick. I'm here with Vic.
Hey.
And William.
Howdy.
And today we have no guest. We are scuttlebutting.
Oh, man, yeah. We are standing around the jug waiting for our water and rum ration.
I just want it now.
Yes, I would love a rum ration right about now. A little daytime drinking.
Yeah, maybe another episode.
They're going to be
We can find a way. Maybe Marine Corps birthday could be a fun one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Grog it up, baby.
Yeah.
Grog it up, except I'm not going to do actual grog. I like my rum as rum.
Yeah, we can Uber home after record
Yeah,
after record that one.
I can take the train. I don't need an Uber.
We'll do a remote episode too.
I
Out of
don't
the
wanna
office.
Do a road. We could do a road episode.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hit up bars outside of random Marine Corps bases.
Yeah. Do they still do hash runs? Is that a thing? Do you guys even know? Am I dating myself big time right now?
You might be dating yourself. You're also talking to people who haven't served, so...
No, this was a non-military thing.
Oh, what the hell?
Yeah, so basically what it was, and this is totally not this is not on the agenda, folks. So this is free of charge. So what the hash run would do is it was basically like a 5 or a 10K, and you have one person who's a rabbit who had like a trailer full of beers, and then they would go out ahead of everybody and start to emplace caches of beer. And so the hash run was you're trying to catch the rabbit, but you have to stop at each of the caches and drink whatever the required amount of drinking was, and then continue on your run. And you're trying to catch the rabbit while also drinking. It's called a hash run. Dude, it was amazing.
So I was in college in Long Beach, which is...
Yes, that's why I'm so
which
surprised.
is,
I don't know about this.
Which is a city surrounded by cities surrounded by cities. It's like, to get outside of Long Beach, you have to pass through at least 6 cities in any direction, unless you're going out to sea. Which means that to safely be able to put down an entire cache of alcohol and not expect some random hobo to come along and drink it would require guard work. And we would not have been doing that.
Well, if you're running
also
at a
running,
good pace. Well, here's the thing. So
running, Vic, running.
Yeah, I did a sweet one in Santa Monica. I've done one in Hermosa was a really good one. Actually, no, that was a golf one. That was interesting, too. And then a really great one in San Diego outside of USD, University of San Diego, that just turned into a massive puke fest.
So we did, if you want to do it at a golf course, we could talk about that, where every 3 holes at a par 3 golf course in Long Beach, we were doing glow golf at night with the glow-in-the-dark golf clubs.
Yeah, cool. I've never done it.
And every 3 holes, I think that we were just chugging like an entire 40 each, and it was just a ridiculous situation.
Yeah,
And
I can't golf, so I'll be the drunk caddy. So have fun using your putter
it's a
when
par
you're trying
3.
to go.
Like you bring literally.
Well, the way you do drinking golf, though, we don't do it with a golf course. You actually have to set it up with each of the bars, and then you just tell them what the signature drink is, and then so if you get the signature drink, that's like a birdie or something.
Oh.
If you just drink a beer, that's like a bogey. So each drink is a corresponding with the amount of strokes it would take, like if you were in golf. And so it's basically just bar hopping with a scoring sheet.
I feel like I
really,
was
is it?
robbed for part of my youth right now,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
having that in my life.
Yeah, that was a good one.
So-
We didn't finish the course because it was just like. Ugh.
So if any of our dear listeners have any ideas for us to poison our
Yes.
bodies for the Marine Corps birthday episode coming up for
Yeah.
2022, please send them to us, and we'll do our
Yeah,
best
and
to
drink
oblige.
responsibly and do it legally.
Yes.
And don't do 240. What is it? 7 this year? 247 shots. That's too many.
Yes.
Or you can space them out.
Yeah.
If we start now,
Yeah.
That's a rough go, even if you have 247 members of your unit. That's still a rough one.
so anyway, so we actually have Marine Corps scuttlebutt.
Yeah,
to
actually, we
scuttle.
actually have some
Yeah.
business to talk about.
I think that we're going to start by in the region around Vic's heart as an Amtracker. The tracks aren't back, but the wheels are back in. What do you think, Vic?
Well, you just changed the T from tracks to tires, and then
Yeah.
you can still do yes. But yeah, so I think we've talked about this. We got a little side series that talks about this a little more in depth. But big news, hot off the ticker as of January 6th, so maybe not that hot. But ACVs are back and are allowed unrestricted waterborne operations following the development of a new tow rope solution to vehicle recovery in the water, waterborne vehicle recovery, which is a very, very dangerous operation, but obviously a very necessary one. You don't want a big old 30-ton vehicle just floating out in the ocean, especially with that amount of combat power, just doing nothing but taking up space in the ocean. So and for those who aren't aware, in September, ACV got suspended from waterborne operations because it couldn't recover itself, and obviously that's a problem. And so, and it really, we've had Colonel Tim Howe on the show a couple times, but really my hat's off to the folks at PM AAA who, and obviously BAE Solutions and everybody is working on this project, but to come up with a solution so quickly. Usually when something like this happens, man, that's kind of a death nail.
BAE had a lot of money on this one too, though, because they just signed the contract for it like 2 years ago, right?
Well, they just got, I want to say it was a year ago, they just got full rate production authorization, which, I mean, we're talking billions of dollars. So that means, as for those, as we're talking the acquisition cycle, you have like these different increments of how many actual pieces of equipment you can buy and how you're going to phase all of that in. And so when you get authorized and you get funding for full rate production, that means like it's a go. The assembly line is fully geared up, like, fully stocked Cokes in the vending machine at the warehouse station. And
overnight, anything you need.
They're just chugging them out now because the concept has been proofed. Everybody's happy with the initial fielding, and now we want to do full rate, meaning it's going to the fleet, and now you're going to start seeing it on ramps and in equipment lockers and armories and all that stuff.
And we are the second adopters of this, I believe, after Italy.
Well, no. So there's a bunch, and so this wheeled technology we didn't invent it. It wasn't anything new. There's a lot of countries, there's like 7 countries that have wheeled, not necessarily amphibious vehicles, but they can go in water. They can forging vehicles. So they can fording, not foraging. I'm thinking of EABO still, but yeah, fording. So they could go across calm lakes, very no current in a river sort of thing. They have propellers and or jets or whatever. And so the Marine Corps and BAE and some of the other vendors who are vying for this contract, they came up and found a way to make this thing survivable through ID blast, survivable for direct fire weapons, indirect fire protection, blast seats, blast harnesses, a remote weapon station that can it's amazing that the gun, and so and wheels that have the blast proof, the drive while destroyed sort of tech and all that.
And do they have the active air pressure adjustments as they're driving? I remember that being a test.
It's been a long. It's been a long time since I was privy to anything that had to do with this thing. But the problem is you don't want it to get too heavy. So you obviously you can't exceed certain things because, and like Colonel Howe was talking about, you can cube out. You can wait out before you cube out, and so you don't want to start making a bunch of heavy stuff because then you're gonna end up with empty space on the ship that's not doing anything for you. Anyhow, but it's still in the realm, and I'm sure they've updated a lot of the systems since I was looking at this thing back in 2016. So So it couldn't recover itself. They didn't come up with and so for those who don't know, the AAV has a recovery variant, and it's this massive boom on it and all this stuff, and it can recover a vehicle on its own, and there's self-recovery stuff with tow ropes and tow cables too that you can do, and I guess the ACV didn't have that sort of organic capability yet, so now they figured it out, they got it done, so ACV's back in, but just, as everything, there's a caveat. So there's a bunch of requirements that each unit, there's 18 tasks each unit has to complete. And this is according to the Marine Corps press release on this, so I'm not making this stuff up. So yeah, they have to complete these 18 tasks, validate them, and then be certified prior to resuming waterborne operations. And these tasks cover a variety of requirements, including ensuring training and qualifications for crew and embark personnel are properly equipped, vehicles have passed required inspections, and operations are conducted with safety boats, sea state assessments, and positive communications. And so, what does all that mean? It means that it's still not an easy thing. Like, when I was a youngster, it was like, hey, we're going out in the water, and you would just drive down the ramp and go. Yeah, I mean, you had to call bear mat or long rifle. I guess long rifle. But you had to call range control, let them know, hey, I'm transiting through the water, just to make sure there's no LCACs or anything out there doing their thing. But we don't really go that far out anyways, and so it was really just like, good. You got your stuff, and then you would just do your sea state assessment and get your Miss Quiz guys ready to go and do all your safety stuff. Still do the vehicle inspections, but man, you're rocking and rolling.
You weren't just like, hey guys, grab your boards. We're going out to San Clemente Island.
That would be amazing. San Clemente Island, as you know, is not as close. Catalina would be not a bad
I wouldn't
deal.
know if you would be able to go to Catalina, could you? Because it's so high trafficked. But nothing is on San Clemente Island. It's just ghosts.
Yeah, there's nothing out there, but I mean, it's a lot
Yeah.
further out. I mean, only on very, very clear days can you see it.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken a boat around it.
Yeah.
It's not a short trip.
I don't know.
for
It's
sure.
not a short. I think you'd probably run out of fuel
Would
before
you?
you got
Couldn't
there.
make it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so yeah, we're back in business, sort of.
Yeah.
And yeah, AAVs. I mean, this is probably the death nails for.
Yeah.
old
Well, they were
AAVs,
scheduled to
but-
be transitioned out over
Well,
the
that's
next
the thing.
10 years, right?
Once you
So,
get full rate production on the new
Yeah.
system, the legacy platform gets slowly
yeah.
phased out. So I mean, this
Yeah.
was in the working for a very
This is
long time. But
2021 instead of 2030. So.
But you
yeah.
look at it though, it's like, so we're just now starting, like they just got full rate production approval. I think what the initial operating capability is like 90. I mean, look, I got this other thing here from Congressional Research Service, and yeah, so we're looking at 72 to be delivered in this year.
And there's what, 1,000 they have to replace?
632 is what the
632.
planned acquisition objective is for the
Okay.
ACV. The original was over 1,100, but it got
Okay.
chopped down to
All right.
632. But yeah, so and then I think there's probably 36 or something that are actually on ramps in the fleet being used. So we're not talking about a massive quantity. So how this matters is that you got AAVs, like the vast majority, 95% of your amphibious ship-to-ship connector, ship-to-shore connector, and your capability to lift infantrymen and take them to objectives inland is deadline for water.
So, in a practical sense, what does moving from tracks to tires actually affect?
Well, it's going. You increase mobility. So here's one of the things I think that people don't consider is that the military is the only service, the only people asking for tracked stuff. There's a few construction companies like, for your excavators and those sorts of things, but there's no civilian market for tracks. And so the production line is extremely slow. And for a legacy vehicle like an AAV, because they don't use the same track as a tank, or even as a Paladin, or any of these other tracked M113, the Army's sort of troop carrier. It's still a little different, and because obviously it can't be super heavy.
Yeah.
And so you don't have a massive supply chain when you need new track, and there's nobody's innovating track because there's just no market for it. Everybody's innovating tire. I mean, you've seen those like gigantic Goliath dump trucks that they use at these massive mines and stuff. I mean, the thing's as big as like a building, and the tires are like 2 stories or something. So there's a ton of and tracks just don't survive blasts.
Yeah, is there like a feeling of consensus that tractors gonna be phased out completely, or is there still utilitarian use for them, or is it just as the situation arises?
I think for a tank, for a main battle tank, you just can't get away because there is a
They're too heavy.
it's a
Yeah.
weight
Yeah.
requirement
You
for
have
a tire.
to spread the weight around. Yeah. So-
And so for main battle tanks, are always going to be tracked. But for an amphibious vehicle where you're looking for mobility, really what we were looking at, again, 2016, Vic is who's speaking right now. The tech for survivability, blast survivability, you can raise it up higher with tires, so you get more standoff from the blast. And
more agile suspension.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, independent suspension
Yeah.
system. So I mean, that's why you can like blow off a tire and still drive with still be mobile because they're independently working and they're all calibrating on their own, and then they're easy to change out, man. Throwing track, meaning the track has come off of the idle wheel or off of the front spoke wheel. It's like it is a monumental task, and I mean you have to like post security because it's gnarly, and to try to do that in a combat zone, it's crazy. To blow off a tire and then be able to like continue through the fight for like another 50 miles and then just like change a tire, like dude, that's amazing. And then I know that there's some things that like I'm sure plenty of people have criticisms that are working on it right now because nothing is awesome coming out the gate. But the science behind it is there for sure. For me, I never actually saw one other than some of the prototypes that were getting rolled out to Camp Pendleton. The science is sound on this stuff. So I was pretty. And then that remote weapon stations are donkulous. So good. So anyways, all that is to say that we won't necessarily see the benefits, again, on a force projection standpoint and then from a deterrence standpoint, which we talked to Dr. Hunziker about in a later episode. And we're not going to see the benefits of ACVs returning back to water operations really for some time because you might see a platoon of them on a MEU.
Yeah.
And that's about as force projection as we're getting right now. So maybe in 5 years, certainly by 2030, which is what the commandant's shooting for.
Well, not every combat zone is going to be a desert, so at some point you're going to need them regardless, right? Because even if you're not bringing them ship to shore, just crossing a marsh.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I mean,
like-
just going shore to shore.
Yeah.
I mean, for what it can swim, I mean, just think about like the Straits of Gibraltar. We're talking about the Straits of Hormuz.
Yeah.
Or if you're any of the islands within like the Indonesian archipelago, for example, dude, you could totally bounce from like, Perth to Bali or something, and then from there to up, and you can do a lot of stuff with that shore to shore capability that the ACV provides.
So there will be a role for it for sure. But more importantly, I guess, would be nomenclature now. Future amphibious marines can't be called Amtrackers. They have to be called, they're not going to call them Amtirers.
I think it's for the higher powers of the Marine Corps to decide, and for us to
Yeah, that's
For
Does the
us
higher
to-
powers decide on
I'm just happy.
Amtracker?
I'm just happy we could stick with Yat Yas. As long as we didn't lose Yat Yas, it's a win.
All right. So we probably don't need to spend as much time on our next topic, but we did have an F-35 go down in the South China Sea aboard the USS Carl Vinson recently.
No, it went down landing,
It went down landing.
so it didn't just like shit the bed.
No, it didn't shit the bed. So they were landing. It was aboard ship, and then it was not aboard ship anymore. Eight crew were injured, including the pilot.
Who ejected though?
Who had ejected. I think 3 of them had to be vacked off of the ship.
That's right.
Kind of a disappointing thing to happen so close to our peer adversary.
Yeah,
but-
so that's the bummer. So if you look at who was all there, I mean, they had the USS America Amphibious Radiant Group. I think there was another carrier group. The Abraham Lincoln carrier group was there. And then they were working with our regional allies, and I think they had a Japanese helo carrier also there. So, yeah, as we're doing force projection, to have this thing, as unfortunate as it was that people were injured, obviously the optics of it aren't awesome. But
Yeah.
this stuff happens.
Yeah, it's a regular occurrence. I imagine before World War II, a lot of things were happening that made us quote unquote look bad. But I mean, as long as people were practicing and training, I guess that's the emphasis.
And it's the new hot piece of gear. So you can't imagine that everybody's gonna be like 100% proficient with it either.
Oh, absolutely. It's better to try to get some of these. I mean, if this accident, I mean, luckily, no one was killed. So as long as lessons are learned.
Yeah, I mean that's a very expensive coral reef, but it's back to nature, man.
Very expensive lessons are learned, but
Well, they recovered the plane.
okay.
Oh, did they? Oh, I thought it just went in the
No,
drain.
they haven't. They're investigating it now to see what went wrong, and they're gonna. I don't know. It's expensive. The airframe is probably still mostly intact. They might just put it right back in.
What are they? I mean, I think it goes to like $3 billion sticker price, right?
They're not cheap.
Off
I don't
the
know.
lot.
Are they $3 billion? They're definitely not cheap. The ACVs are $4 million. I
Yeah.
think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we're got a whole couple factors beyond that with
Oh,
these
yeah.
jets.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not. They're not cheap.
Yeah, you ain't rolling it off the lot. That's
Yeah.
for sure. You're
Yeah.
definitely financing.
Someone's signing a dotted line.
Yeah.
Someone has to back that up. But yeah, so and right now we're kind of in the phase 2 where the F-35 is proliferating around NATO pretty much right
Yeah,
now.
our allies
so,
are trying to get in on that cheddar cheese.
because
Right?
it's been largely the United States with a little bit of Britain, I think, doing all the testing, and now like I think France is getting some right now or in the near future. They have the Eurofighter still, I think, but
I don't know because I know France obviously just having looked at it through the submarine thing with Australia, they've got their own industry companies. So
yeah,
I'm not
they
sure.
do. They produce a lot. They have a really robust military production set up.
The infrastructure.
But I think that they were getting some F-35s just so they could have them.
Well, I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like it's not necessary that it becomes part of your national defense strategy, but you want the instruction manual
Mhm.
Yeah.
so that you can start to look at
Yeah.
what was the science, how did this come to be, and then
Yep.
yeah, I think you want to just be in that conversation,
Yeah.
and you got to pay to play, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You do. Yeah, bringing up that submarine thing probably is just sticking that finger right in that wound because they are out billions of dollars on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I saw a couple back and forth articles talking about how essentially like they were just overcharging the Australians, and then
Well, they definitely were. They're charging a premium, but the submarine market is not exactly
booming.
booming. Yeah.
Isn't it? I thought subsurface was like the new thing.
Maybe not
I mean, it's a
booming.
hotness.
Booming maybe in the it's definitely. I mean, people obviously want
You don't
submarines.
have
but
a lot of options.
there's not a lot of diversity. Like the marketplace is pretty narrow of who you're gonna get submarines from.
Yeah,
I
I guess that's
imagine.
Yeah, you can buy from the United States. You can buy them from France, I guess. You can buy them from Russia.
Does the UK have?
They have
thing?
some. I don't know how much they're actually like selling out.
Yeah, China.
They
Obviously.
probably would want to ramp that up now that they've Brexited.
I always think of a cereal when I hear Brexit.
I mean, Brexit breakfast. They're not too far off.
But it's like Mueslix, right? So they got Mueslix.
Yeah.
which that's obviously not British, but
But anyway, so Australia's getting some nuclear submarines, and we're recovering our expensive jets out of the South China Sea.
yeah, with the nuclear submarine would be would be real like a collaboration.
That's like a armed forces commercial right there.
Yeah.
Just like the submarine lifting.
Well, yeah, it's like Superman coming to pull the Batmobile out of out of a ditch or something.
There is like some toy set, like an Army Man toy set, where it's like the box cover was like it had an aircraft carrier, but paratroopers were landing on it, and then there's like a submarine coming. I'm like, holy like, what's gone so wrong
Yeah,
that
yeah.
like someone in the military is like, all right, send the paratroopers on, like.
Yeah. Oh, we're also trying to make sure China can't sell their jets to other countries. So we got to make sure that our jets look good.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely there's some marketing
Yeah.
there.
So, But I think that we are doing a good job. But let's move on from that.
Let's go international.
We're going international. Well, you could have called the last one international if you wanted. It was in Asia.
Yeah.
But
that's right.
let's jump to a whole other continent right now. So sparking this thought is the coup in Burkina Faso.
Can you bring our listeners up to speed if they're not tracking?
Yeah, so in Burkina Faso, which is a landlocked country south of Mali, west of Niger, northeast of the Ivory Coast, the military ousted the democratically elected government, which on its face sounds awful. You
Yes.
never want your democratically elected officials to be ousted by a lieutenant colonel.
Yeah.
Um,
By a coup.
Yeah. So, but the reason why the military felt the need to oust the government was because Islamic militants have moved into the country and are displacing millions of residents and killing somewhat indiscriminately.
Well, I mean, yeah, they're kind of handing the Burkina Faso's military kind of handing them their asses right
Yep.
now. I
Mhm.
mean, at least in the reporting that I've seen, there doesn't seem to be much back and forth. It's pretty
No.
much like
Yeah. And whenever they want to deploy to go support, the government doesn't give them the go-ahead.
they're not support. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
what was it? One of these bases put in basically asking emergency
Mm-hmm.
requests for support and troops 2 weeks before they were annihilated.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, that
Yeah, and
That's
I'm not
not
like
awesome.
fully up to date on all of my Burkina Faso geography, but was that the Solhan one or was that the?
it said here,
Um,
and I'm looking at the for those who are listening, the BBC article on this. Yeah, Solhan.
yeah. So.
mhm.
Yeah. So.
Oh no! Solhan was the 100 people killed. This was another attack in northern Inata.
Anyway, yeah. So, but the militants have moved into Burkina Faso through the Mali border, where they've already been. We've heard about the Boko Haram stuff. Like that's the stuff that makes the news, because when you kidnap hundreds of girls at the same time out of a school, sell them into slavery, and
Well, the French went in.
yeah.
I mean, that was a major
Yep.
operation. The French. I mean, the French hadn't deployed in forever, and they went in. And it seemed like they did a pretty damn good job. But
they did a thorough sweep.
Yeah.
it's kind of like a virus, right? Like you don't
Mhm.
get all of it.
Yep.
It's going to come back stronger
Yeah.
and mutating. And all that.
Angrier,
Yeah, angrier.
So, and they're one of the things that the militants are really trying to do to ingrain themselves is sow discord among religious lines. And so they're turning the Islamics against the Christians and the I can't remember the name. We're going to call it non-Judeo-Christian.
Non-Judeo-Christian.
Yeah, non-Judeo-Christian.
Non-
I don't want to say the tribalists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
the
The,
non-sons of Abraham.
yeah, against everybody. So it's kind of become a mess.
Well,
The,
it's more or less always been a mess, but there's been some sort of power. I mean, this will come up later, but like these old ethnic religious tensions that we thought would have disappeared in the 21st century are still very alive and relevant to these people's daily lives.
I think that for anybody who digs in and reads a lot about Western Africa, they do struggle with it and they try very hard to overcome it. I don't want to sell them short.
Oh, absolutely.
I did a big digging in Lagos, which is a few doors down from Burkina Faso, in Nigeria there, which I think is right now the largest city in Africa by population. And the reason is because there was a lot of people who had to move because out in the marches, out in the reaches of the land there, all that tension, all these extremists, all these military juntas, all this stuff.
Ethnic.
Yeah, so
refugees.
displace them, and so these kind of refugees move in
Yeah.
towards the more stable cities. And so if it's Lagos, they do a really good job of, I don't want to say really good job, they're doing the best they can to incorporate everybody, and everybody understands, and they're all packed in there too tight, and the roads suck, and they can't build fast enough. The population has quadrupled in the last 10 years, and Yeah, they're really struggling with it. If you look at a place like Kinshasa in the Congo, they have not done a good job. Um,
Well, I think that's sort of what you're getting at least what you let in with, is like these mass displaced peoples. They've got to go somewhere, and there's just a lot of these places. I mean, just think about if like just take a major city, maybe not one of the major cities, but let's just take a major city in the states. So let's take like Indianapolis, Indiana, a big city. And I'm sure they're doing fine with the population that they have. But if you were to all of a sudden, like Chicago were to fold, and now you've got this massive migrant population that's going to move into Indianapolis, it's probably not going to hold up for too much longer because it just you can't. And then it happens again 5 years later, right, when you sort of think you got it under control, and then it happens again. Because I think according to this article, this was the 4th coup in West Africa in the last 17 months.
Yeah, and you made a very good observation. I don't know if it holds up with correlation or causation, but
No, it definitely should be brought up. Yeah, Vic, what you were saying earlier with the
JTF
the-
HOA?
Yeah.
the Joint Task Force.
Yeah, so exactly. I don't know if this is coincidental or causal, but yeah, it seems like a lot of this stuff. 'Cause I think Mali kicked off right after we rolled up the flag on JTF HOA, which, for those who aren't aware, we had an entire MAGTAF in Djibouti, which is just a little bit north of, or it borders Somalia. So regionally, obviously, Africa's a massive continent, but you still have an entire MAGTAF in your neighborhood, in your backyard, and it seemed to at least give people an idea of there's some supervision here. And also they're doing a ton of infrastructure stuff while they were there. And so, yeah, they left, and then, 4 coups in 17 months. And then I think you had mentioned this earlier, Nick, about the democracies. Like, these are all
democracies where these coups are happening.
Yeah, which is a bummer, man.
Yeah.
Which shows that, like, you know, it's not to say that the democratic experiment is failing. It's just people are upset with how they're being represented, I guess.
Yeah, or if the democracy just can't react fast enough to what they need it to do.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going on? I mean, we're not embedded. We can't really speak to it, but there's no real. I don't think the Marines will be in Burkina Faso. Like, it seems, I would say, very, very, very unlikely.
Oh yeah.
But it is something that could spread, and that region of Western Africa is hundreds of millions of people. Burkina Faso and the countries it touches. I mean, if it does spread to a place like Nigeria, where Lagos is, or something
Or
like
Ivory
that,
Coast.
the Ivory Coast.
Yeah, using metaphor, there's just
Yeah.
tons of gasoline on the ground and a lot of people
Yeah.
smoking. Like,
So
Yeah, for real. Yeah, I mean, because, you know, when you look at the region, I mean, Ivory Coast actually, as the name would imply, touches the water. And I think it was in the 90s when we did the Liberia non-combatant evacuation there, and that was, I think
that's
Liberia's-
northwest of
yeah.
the Ivory Coast a little bit, I think. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a precedent for us to act, maybe not necessarily crisis response, but, you know, it'd be great to have an amphibious vehicle that could take you from ship to shore and help out with something like that.
yeah.
Lagos is on an island.
Yeah.
Burkina Faso is landlocked. I don't know how much it helps there. I think there's like one river.
Yeah,
But
that's one river that could use
But yeah, I mean,
that could be crossed.
it is a domino effect, though. I mean, you get, even if all you're looking at is just displaced persons, you get a massive migration to some place that creates more unrest in that place, and then that spills over into something else. I mean, because of the way that the borders and stuff in Africa were just drawn up, sort of happenstance. There's a lot of history that could play into this that we aren't even fully
and then you bring in Islamic militants from out of town.
Yeah,
And
the out-of-towners.
Who can definitely capitalize on a lot of anger and that
been
definitely
working on it,
subsets of
yeah.
the community do feel.
And power. They offer power. I mean, look at ISIS.
Yep.
Which I think isn't Boko Haram an offshoot of ISIS and not Al Qaeda.
Yep. But I think Al Qaeda physically is actually in Burkina Faso.
Oh, really?
Not just ISIS type stuff.
Okay.
Um,
So Mali is ISIS, Burkina Faso, Al Qaeda. Is that right? Or
we can't draw lines on that,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think they're all in there. But
yeah, and if you just go a little bit further north, you're into Libya, and obviously that
mhm.
situation.
So we'll do a deep dive into Africa at some point over the summer, probably.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to listen to it. So
Yeah.
please email us.
Yeah.
Go back. If you ever any topic you want us to address or cover, we will happily do
Or
it.
if you're an expert on Africa and are just mad at how wrong we are right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Oh,
that
yeah.
would be amazing.
Yeah,
Like,
come in and clear up that gray area.
yeah, yeah. If you were the Dr. Hunziker of Africa, like, please come on the show.
But yeah, moving on to the bear in the room, the big ticket international item.
The bear, good.
The bear in
nice,
the room, dude.
nicely done.
All right.
I
And this one actually comes with some.
Wait, do you guys remember this? I must break you.
Oh.
If he dies, he dies.
Yeah. Was it Ivan Danko? Was that who?
No, Dolph.
Drago. Ivan
Drago.
Yeah.
Danko was the pro wrestler. I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah. Ivan Drago is the guy that killed Apollo Creed, which is fiction.
Yes.
Yes.
But real.
So this one, my fellows from Gazette Magazine, is available on the internet as an extension of Gazette Magazine, The Feasibility of Russian Amphibious Operations Against Ukraine by Colonel Philip G. Wazalewski. Forgive me, Colonel.
We did our best.
Yeah, so this article is available on the web, and in fact, we got an email from Colonel Wilbur saying, "Hey, this is super relevant
Run it."
because basically what is this author wrote about is currently happening." And by the way, like if you haven't been following the the instance Ukraine, this is relevant. I was just thinking in my head like I've been following Ukraine for 2 months. I'm like a tweak from South Park. Whenever someone mentions anything like Ukraine, I'm like, no, Ukraine, we're all gonna die. Like, so like that's where I've been mentally.
Oh,
but
man, I'm freaking out.
yeah, but yeah. So this article goes pretty into depth on how Russia can conduct amphibious operations against Ukraine and. Which is pretty much what's happening. I noticed that if people follow the news, that the Russian Baltic fleet appears obviously moving towards the Black Sea, and there's some naval movements going on there that got a lot of attention recently.
And didn't the Spanish send some ships
Yeah,
over to I guess blockade or assist
To
with?
be in the region,
Yeah,
I
just
think
to
is
loiter.
yeah.
Yeah.
To loiter around and wait till someone asks them to do something.
And this is, I mean, like, if you follow news, this is like some big high stakes poker that's going on in Ukraine. I mean, it's and like for a lot of people, I guess for some context for people who
Yeah, can you bring us up to speed?
yeah. So here's how I see the situation according to William. So please, for the love of God, go and fact check me. And I feel I'm well informed on this, but please, if you want to speak more, like or come on, hit us up. We can get you on the podcast. But definitely do some more own research. I always encourage that for anything any three of us say or any of our guests. But it's kind of like like in Hitler's Mein Kampf, he literally pretty much spelled out directly what I'm gonna do. And if you listen to a lot of Putin's interviews, I mean, he wants to restore the greater power of Russia in the most literal forms. And if you look back throughout the history of Russia, they've always viewed themselves as like the big brother of the Slavic people. And so like that's essentially how they got involved in World War I. We were talking about earlier, because they viewed themselves as a protector of the Slavic people in Serbia, fighting against the Austro-Hungarians. So they view Ukraine as like almost like with like their territory as the greater power of the Slavic people. And the issue with that is there's a lot of obviously decades, centuries old tensions between the Ukrainians and the Russians. I was actually watching on the streaming service Curiosity, there's a documentary called Apocalypse Second World War, I believe. And they talk about how as a result of Soviet policy in Ukraine, which I'll call a genocide. There's a lot of historians who might disagree with me of Holodomor, but which I could also mispronounce. So double check me on that. But the Ukrainians had a lot of tensions with the Russian people as a result of that. And then when the Germans invaded during World War II, there's a lot of footage you see in this documentary that I watch of Ukrainians giving flowers, stuff to the Germans because they're happy. They view them as liberators. But part of, Germans' ethnic cleansing policy, they wanted the land. They didn't really care about any of the people there. And so Ukrainians then undergo another, pseudo genocide. And then when Russia comes back in, lo and behold, oh, you welcomed in the enemy with open arms, because how they saw it. And then another wave of oppression go on Ukraine. So like there's always this tension back and forth between the Ukrainians and the Russians, and Putin's trying to exploit the nationalism of the Russian people and the view that they want to be a great power again. They want to be a hegemon, a global hegemon, specifically over Slavic people. So this is, we saw what they did with Crimea. We saw what they attempted to do in Georgia, and this is the next step. And it's this weird situation where it's with the information that we have, we get to see this escalation of force over and over, and it's very very volatile.
So what's your take then on sort of the Ukrainian leadership, sort of like patting us all on the head, like, no, it's gonna be okay, like it's not that big of a deal?
Yeah, I saw an article about. Obviously they want as much support as possible. I think. Part of it's also like trying to like maintain like the internal pressure. I feel, because they don't want their populace to lose it in the face of a potential Russian invasion.
Would you say that the rhetoric is matching their action, or are they acting in a way like they think it's coming and just saying?
The thing is, most of my articles I see on the Russian-Ukrainian are from the perspective of what Russia's doing. I don't really know exactly like the Ukrainian military and what policy they are doing. But I think that generally speaking, I've seen that there's obviously reserves being called up, and that there's trying to mobilize their population to maybe have different layers of warfare, conventional, non-conventional. But is it too little, too late at this point? That's outside of what I would be able to answer.
And Ukraine has a big problem of they don't have any money.
Money makes the world go round.
Especially because they're not collecting any taxes from Crimea right now, which is
was that a wealthy area?
Because of the trade that goes through there. It's kind of this little port. It's not an island. It's a little peninsula that looks like an island that kind of sticks out in the Black Sea there, and it was the port. That's why Russia wanted it. Now, there's other ports along the coast of Ukraine that they can use, but Crimea was
Odessa would be the biggest one, right?
Yep.
And based on what this article is, based on this article and some other ones I've read on it, because also Russia is really tight with Belarus right now. So they're looking, I think, by using the Black Sea Fleet and then seizing, ports along Ukrainian coast, and then going in through like Belarus. Potentially, this is obviously like up to debate, and like we'll see it happens if or when it happens. But the idea is to try to isolate Ukraine from NATO-EU and make it so it's more difficult to get involved.
And they are doing that through nefarious means. So Germany has a massive anti-nuclear sentiment. They just hate this stuff. And so they are becoming very reliant on Russian gas.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so now Russia can hold that card over Germany's head.
Which they are doing.
And they do.
Absolutely.
Say, hey, don't get involved with Poland or Ukraine, or guess what happens to the gas?
Mm-hmm.
We shut it off.
Yeah, because Germany is not as into this.
No.
I mean, they just forced their naval commander-in-chief was forced to resign because he was making some pro-Putin statements to, I guess, like a Turkish newspaper or something.
So.
And so he got his pink slip. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of, and I think there's also the sentiment, and I mean, draw parallels to America as much as you want, but like I think for the Germans are thinking, hey, we're pretty comfortable. Why would would we jack this up?
Well, because they've learned. I mean, like the German. I think I had a history teacher in like maybe it was at college or high school. I can't remember, but he essentially made the argument like Germany learned their lesson that like major wars may not end in their favor, and they lose money during them, and they've realize like it's not going to pay out for us to do this.
Well, I think after the unification, though, they sort of had this ability to have a foot in both camps.
Exactly.
And so they were able to like basically just free market it up.
And Putin, I mean, Putin's smart and he's rational and irrational at the same time. You could argue maybe he's rational in his irrationality, but I mean,
is that the definition of like despotic or
yeah, exactly.
Diabolical?
But I mean, it's right now like the window for invasion is closed, and there's I guess I've seen like weather concerns how it's gonna like the winter thaw would definitely could slow things down, but also I mean like the disunification in Europe and NATO right now, like having especially with like post COVID, America pulling out Afghanistan, we're not very war hungry at the moment. Maybe not in terms of government, but as a people, I would argue that like we're worried at the moment. And then just like the global turmoil that's going on, it's like this window of opportunity, kind of like we talked about Dr. Hunziker, like with World War I. You know, like Germany realized, oh shoot, Russia's becoming an industrial power. Austria is about to fall apart under its own weight. And we still have a greater industrial strength than Britain and France. If we do this now,
now's the time.
Now's the time, because in 10 years we'll be outpaced by Russia. Russia will have a greater industrial capacity than us, and us referring to Imperial Germany. So it's if again history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes, but you can definitely see the patterns between Putin and World War I and World War II for that matter.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on there. But back to where we started with the article, amphibious Russian operations against Ukraine. So the article kind of makes some points about how it could go wrong for Russia.
Mm-hmm.
It could be
the article definitely tees it up as a near insurmountable challenge.
Yeah,
but that does not stop them from giving it a go.
No.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. It's definitely like difficult, extremely difficult, not impossible.
Yeah.
And I think also like if you're like a policy person, you're gonna view when you hear like, oh, Russia can do an amphibious, it appears more realistic than it is in reality. It's kind of like with Taiwan. It's like, yeah, China could go in, but there's also a lot of just like processes and things you need to do to get to that point.
Yeah, a lot of things have to go right.
Exactly. So is it an option? Yes. Is it a feasible option? Probably not. But to be fair, if a lot of things went right and they pull it off, then there'd be a mass. I mean, with Incheon, with the Marine Corps history, a lot of things had to go right for it to work. But in that case, a lot of things went right and it worked.
Well, also there is a lot to be said for like show of force operations and for demonstrations, and this kind of saber rattling, if that's what this is, can get you some gains geopolitically, especially in the region, and if like almost like what we're talking about in Africa, but if Putin is trying to take the next step in his game plan with Crimea. Definitely doing this sort of show of force and getting people unnerved, which I guess would speak to why the president is trying to downplay it. The president of Ukraine is trying to downplay it. Is that if you start forcing people to choose a side,
yes,
where are you going to land, and how many will you actually have in support once it does go down? And
also, it does throw the Ukrainian military through a loop where they're like, because obviously Putin's trying to attack them cognitively as well as physically. So it's like, where is this going to happen?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I think Alexander did this crossing into India, but you just do your demonstration so many times that by the time you're ready to roll, the other side is just like, ugh, they're doing that thing again. All right, I guess I'll follow them to see where they go. And then like, oh, man, he's crossing now. Yeah. We're totally unprepared because I just got lulled into this like complacency.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, man. It seems awful good. One thing I did think was amazing, though, in the article that we read that you shared with us, Nick, was that Klitschko is the mayor of Kiev. Did you guys see that? The boxer, the heavyweight boxer.
Oh shoot!
I didn't make that connection.
I didn't make that connection either.
Let me look at that. I think I even highlighted it. I'm like, oh, dude, Klitschko, because he was talking about how because he lived in Germany, and so he's like super pissed that they're not anteing up, and so where was that, man? I was like, seriously, Klitschko? Yeah. So all right, it talks about the Ukrainian foreign minister accused Germany of taking a stance. And then Kiev Mayor Vitaly Klitschko, a former heavyweight boxing champion who lived in Germany for years, went further. I'm like, no way.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I read that. I just went right over it.
So-
I'm like, duh. I mean, obviously a boxer has to be a.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
you can do what you want in the Ukraine, but when you get to Kiev, man, you're going to be in for a fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, I started actually getting into like boxing, like both like in practice and watching it. And I think the first big fight I saw was like was when Usyk won I guess whatever title he was going for. He's Ukrainian as well. And
Yeah.
you can learn a lot of warfare and strategy and tactics from
sure.
boxing. It's really, I mean, it's a game of chess.
When then Pacquiao was is a politician in the
He is
Philippines.
now. Yeah.
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 Dude, that's it, man.
Yeah.
Maybe
Take
that's the direction.
Take that ring knowledge into the
That's-
political sphere.
Maybe the United States should follow suit. Maybe.
Yeah. More boxers, less lawyers.
Ooh, actually, and I don't want to drop a plug just yet because we don't have confirmation, but there is a foundation out there, and we can get you guys more information. But speaking of politics, there's a foundation that wants to get more veterans into politics, and it's a nonpartisan organization. So they're not really, obviously it's not red or blue, but yeah, more veterans, more fighters in the politics, man.
Less lawyers.
Yeah. Less
Yes. Lord.
Yeah. There's a lot to go into with Ukraine. We probably on the other side of the Fort Chaplain's month take a much deeper dive into that.
Well, hopefully, yeah.
Um,
I'm sure there'll be plenty more to talk about in a month
But
too.
we have to
Yeah.
talk about Poland. We have to talk about Sweden. We have to talk about NATO. Like,
Yeah.
it's a 6-episode. I mean, it's a 6 class course that you probably need
Yeah.
to take before you even understand half of
Well,
it. So,
hopefully we can put it off until a month and to talk about Ukraine again and not have to do a spontaneous Scuttlebutt episode when shit if shit hits the fan. So
yeah. Like if you just want to see an interesting map, look at polls in Ukraine for various things. It's all the further west you go, the much more anti-Russian it gets.
well, yeah.
Well, really.
So over on the east, where Russia has already taken over 2 counties or provinces and
I guess that
Crimea,
makes sense. Yeah.
they're in there. They give them things. They're very
Probably see themselves more ethnically Russian on that
yeah.
side.
They kind of did, and they're moving. Like Russia's trying to weed it out so that it's very pro-Russian in there, regardless. Like the non-pro-Russian people are getting out, or they're bringing in like actual Russian citizens and stuff to live there. But so in those places, like there was a lot of it looked like a war zone very recently, but as you go west, like just outside of those territories, it's like a 60-40 deal, 60% anti-Russian, 40% pro-Russian. And then you go like another province over and then another province over. By the time you get to, and Kyiv, remember, is kind of northwestern. It's like in the northwest, kind of the western third. It's extraordinarily anti-Russian. Like it becomes like a 98%.
Well, yeah, because like we mentioned earlier, like all like these old ethnic religious, etc. Like all these societal differences. I mean, they never went away. They're still there. They still exist. And like when for them it's like grandpa or great grandpa was starved during the Ukrainian genocide from the Soviets, and then so and so was killed by the Nazis, and then I mean there was a lot of from the Russian perspective, they see the Ukrainians siding with their Nazis, and the Nazis are like the big bad ultimate bad guy, well, for a lot of cultures, societies, but especially Russia in particular. So there's all these like old things never really went away.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, we could talk about Ukraine and Russia all day.
Especially if you want us to. So please email us and let us know, and then we can know. And or if you're an expert on this subject who thinks we're completely butchering it, which is fine, please feel free to let us know, and we can maybe get you on.
There's a high propensity.
I feel
to
like
that,
we
actually.
bring better than average knowledge to the things we talk about, but we're not experts.
I think you can almost do it
So,
line by line. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
It goes line by line. Like this one was a good one. This
Yeah,
one not so
yeah.
much. But then you kind of saved it there. But
Yeah.
then you really shit the bed here. Yeah.
Yeah, like
But to be fair, that's also like what the experts do. They battle these out with each other. So there's probably some will agree with us on some aspects, some that hate us on some aspects. But at the same time, those people that hate us on some aspects will agree with us on
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
So, This is fine as long as you're doing your own research, dear listener, and you know, using us to supplement you and guide you and find things to do. That's like our job done. We just want you to become more educated.
Read the Gazette, read Leatherneck, and just stick with us.
Yeah,
just stick with us. We'll see this through together.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us. Our opinions are just opinions. They do not represent the Marine Corps Association. We should really put that out there after an episode.
Or
like
the United
this.
States Marine Corps.
Yeah, or the United States
or
Marine
DOD,
or
or
Department of Defense.
Part of the defense.
Or the Ukrainians, government.
Western Africans.
or the CEO of the Carl Vincennes,
Yeah.
or the PMAAA.
Yeah, pretty much anything we represent,
or
none
the,
of
or
it.
the leader of the coup of the Burkina Faso.
And if you come at us with a solid, well-cited paper,
have
we'll
a
change
take.
our minds in a hurry. So,
As what's his face said, have a take, don't suck.
and save all of our sound bites and use them against us later.
Yes, please.
All right. I guess we'll catch you guys on the flip. I'm Nick. That's Vic.
Bye.
And that's William.
peace out.
And we'll see you when we see you.